Emotional intelligence starts the same way every storm starts. You feel it first. Notice every storm has two sides, the one the world sees and the one you feel. Here, the first rattles windows and shakes trees, and the second one, it shakes you. It's that rush in your chest when the anger rises, that heat that climbs before words escapes, that flood of thoughts that say you're losing control. And yet, what if the storm isn't the enemy? What if it's the teacher? Because every time the wind howls, it's asking you one question. Will you react or will you respond? You see, emotional intelligence isn't silence. It isn't pretending the thunder doesn't exist. It's learning to stand inside the noise, to breathe while everything shakes, to find rhythm, not resistance. So before we start today, hold on to this. The calm you're chasing isn't out there somewhere. It's already within you. You just have to learn to hear it through the storm.
Storms may rise, I will not fall. Waves may crash, I hear the call. Scars remain, but strength will stay. I am the total person today.
Now, storms come in all shapes. Some are around you, at work, at home, in your neighborhood. The conflict with a coworker that never seems to end. The tension with a neighbor over something small that somehow feels big. Family pressure, money worries, and that long list of responsibilities stacking up until you feel like you're carrying the whole world alone. And some storms live inside, the ones nobody else can see. The thoughts that won't turn off when you're lying awake at night. The quiet battles with doubt, shame, or fear that make you feel alone even in a crowded room. Those storms don't show up on the surface, but they're just as real. More often than you like, they feel even heavier. And when those storms hit, emotions rise, right? And it starts as slow as a burn where you're frustrated and you pretend it isn't there. And then your doubts starts to creep in, whispering that if you're falling short, by the time you notice it, it's already spilling out. Sharp words aimed at you, at people who didn't cause it. At times it's shame, that heavy weight that makes you want to disappear. At times, it's not even something you can name. It's it's numbness. That empty place where nothing moves. And you find yourself asking, why don't I feel it? Why don't I feel anything at all? We've all been there. That's where emotional intelligence comes in. Now, I'm not talking about being perfect or pretending you're calm when you're not. I'm talking about noticing what's going on inside and choosing, even in a storm, to respond differently. That little pause. That breath, that space between what happens and what you do next, that's emotional intelligence. All right, let's make it simple. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean you never lose your cool. It doesn't mean you bury your feelings or fake a smile. It means you notice. You recognize when a storm is rising inside of you. And and instead of letting it sweep you away, you slow down. You slow down enough to choose what's coming next. Because the real trouble usually isn't the emotion, it's the speed of it. Anger by itself isn't the problem. Fear by itself isn't the problem either. Even shame isn't that is the full problem. The big problem is what happens when you move while you're in it. So here's a question that keeps things honest. When the storm rises in you, what is your default? Do you get sharp? Do you get loud? Do you shut down? Do you go quiet and pull away? Do you try to win? Do you scroll and numb out because you can't sit with what you're feeling? And if you're being real, how's that been working for you? Because most of us have a pattern and we could call it personality, but a lot of it is just your system trying to protect you. The only way it learned. Now, I want to bring in again Dr. Lisa Miller for a second because this part matters and it's easy to feel in your own life. When people are stressed and disconnected, their brains get stuck in the survival mode we talked about, the stress centers that fire up like alarms. They push you into a overdrive. You feel restless, anxious. You're looking for a problem that may not even be there. Like you're trapped in this loop you can't shut off. And then you start hearing life through that lens. A comment feels like disrespect. A delay feels like rejection. A question feels like an attack. Stress fogs the windshield. It narrows your view until all you see is threat. And yet, when people live from connection, when they pause, take a breath, and ground themselves when meaning or service, those circuits calm down. Then another system wakes up, right? Remember the ventral attention network, where that part of the brain that helps you stay open? You notice that's what's real. And it helps you solve problem with clarity, with calmness. You see, connection is what wipes the glass clean. And connection doesn't have to be some big moment. It can look like one honest sentence where you say, I'm okay right now. It can look like stepping outside for a minute to calm down. It can look like asking, what did you mean by that? Instead of assuming the worst. It can look like choosing to be present for someone else, not as a distraction, but as a reminder that you're part of something bigger than your stress. That's why emotional intelligence matters. it restores your clarity. Now let's sit at the round table and ask the simple question. How do you hold steady when the storm is inside of you? If we strip it down, it lands like this. Stop treating losing your cool like it means you're broken. Most of the time, it's your system telling you it's running too hot. And the reason we get here is simple. We stay in survival mode longer than we admit. The pressure stacks up, the mind starts scanning, the body stays tight, and then the smallest thing becomes the last thing. That's why emotional intelligence doesn't show up as being calm. It shows up in all little tells you recognize right away. You walk into a room already tense and you hear feedback and you feel the chest jump like it's a threat. You get defensive before you even understand what was meant. You go quiet instead of saying what's true. You feel numb and then wonder why nothing feels good. You try to fix grief with words because silence feels uncomfortable. And then we wait, and then we make the common mistake. We try to solve a nervous system problem with willpower. We try to solve connection problem by going alone. We try to solve the storm by wrestling the waves. So the table flips it like this. You don't need to win the moment. You need to keep your awareness in the room. Don't look for the perfect response. Just look for a cleaner one. And here's what the table leaves sitting in your head. What does a storm look like right before it speaks? And who pays the price when it does? All right, let me make this real. Picture this. You're in a meeting and someone puts you on the spot, criticizes you in front of everyone. Your gut reaction is to what? Defend yourself? Fire back? Protect your name? And you can feel it in your body, right? That quick heat, that urge to interrupt, that inner voice saying, don't let this slide, man. And yet, you decide to take a breath. You say, thanks for pointing that out. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to fix it. You see, the whole tone shifts. That's emotional intelligence in action. Not because you won, because you refuse to add more to the room, more storm to the room. And it's not always a meeting. Sometimes it's just smaller than that, and that's what makes it dangerous. It's the text you read the wrong way. It's the tone you think you heard. It's the scene with no reply, and your mind starts writing a whole story about it. And what happens next? You send something sharp, right? Or you go cold. Or you start proving a point that didn't need to be made. And later, you look back and think, what did I take it? Why did I take it there? So here's a question worth sitting with. When you're about to react, do you actually know what's true? Or are you reacting to the story you built in your head? Because stress makes assumptions feel like facts. And emotional intelligence is being aware enough to check that before you throw fuel on it. Now or at home, your kids test your patience again and again and again, right? What's the easiest move? What is to blow up? And I'll bring in my own story here. Back when my kids were younger, I often felt like the only way to get through them was it was raising my voice. You see, I grew up in a generation where fear ruled the house. You didn't want to disappoint your parents because you knew there'd be consequences. That's how it worked. And part of me carried that into fatherhood, thinking maybe yelling would create the same fear, the same obedience that I went through. Did it work? I don't think so. Not today. Maybe it made you know what? It definitely made it worse. It wasn't building respect. I wasn't. I was raising the volume. I wasn't building that respect. What I was hoping. I was raising the volume, and the truth is, it didn't feel good, and neither for me. That's when I realized I had to work on my emotions for my kids and for my own mental state. That's where emotional intelligence becomes real. That pause, that breath you take, that reminder. They're learning, and so am I. Every storm at home is a chance to practice awareness. Because if you don't notice, because if I don't notice my emotions, I repeat what hurt me. And if I stay aware, I get a chance to build something different. And here's the part people skip. Emotional intelligence isn't only what you do before you react, it's what you do after you react. Because you will lose it sometimes. You'll say something sharp. You'll get impatient. You'll shut down when you should have spoken. So the question becomes, what happens next? Do you defend it and act like it's fine? Or do you repair it? Repair is emotional intelligence too. It can sound like that came out wrong. Let me try again. I'm heated. I need a minute so I don't make this worse. I should have spoken to you. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. You see, those words, they build trust. Not because you're flawless, because you're accountable. Now and then, there's grief. And emotional intelligence doesn't always look like words or solution. At times, it's sitting next to someone in silence. You're not trying to fix things or rushing, just being there. In that presence, they feel understood. There are storms most of us face, not headlines, but daily moments that shape how we live. Now, I'll be honest, this hasn't always been me. For too long, I let stress call out the shots. I reacted before I thought. My kids saw me lose it more than I want to admit. But over time, I learned, and still learning, that I don't need to be perfect, but just enough. Now, when I feel the storm rising inside, I pause and ask one question. Is this really me? Or is this the storm taking over? That one question can save you. It forces awareness before reaction. It gives you a chance to choose to step back and respond from clarity instead of the chaos. That pause doesn't change the storm, it changes you. And that small question has changed my life It's made me calmer as a parent, steadier as a leader, and more grounded as a person. So let me ask you, what storm pushes your buttons the hardest? Where do you find yourself reacting before you think? And what would it happen if you just pause just once and choose differently? Emotional intelligence isn't a trophy. It's not something you achieve and hang on the wall. It's a practice. Day by day, storm by storm, each moment you pause, you grow. Awareness replaces reaction. That's how you shift from chaos to calm, one choice at a time. Emotional intelligence becomes who you are, not what you do. All right, where do we land with all this? Frankl says meaning. The Stoics say discipline. Michael Singer says let it go. And you have Dr. Miller says connection. And me, I say emotional intelligence is that pause, that breath you take, that space to notice what's rising inside, and the strength to choose your response. It's not perfection, nor is it silence. It's presence. You can't stop storms from forming. Life will move faster than you plan. And yet, when you stay aware, when you breathe, when you choose, you stop being the storm. That's how you hold steady in the storm. Now, next time we talk about resilience, not just surviving the storm, but what happens after they knock you down, how you rise again, and what it really means to keep going. That's where we're heading. So before we close episode 4, I want to hear from you. Where does your reaction loop fire? At work, at home, or in those quiet moments late at night? What changes when you what changes when you pause? When you let clarity system switched on instead? Share it in your comments. Send me a message or join me in a future episode if you want to talk about how you learn to pause in the storm. Because emotional intelligence isn't only about managing yourself. It's about how we connect, how we lead, how we live together. So don't hold it in. Bring your story. Let's keep learning from each other. Let's keep this conversation alive. You're not alone in the storm. When storms rise, take the pause before you take the swing. Take the pause back. Write your own story. Choose your response. I'm Chris. This is A Total Person. Talk soon.
I breathe in now and let go of fear. The storm may rise, but I still stay. I hold my ground and find my way. Each step is mine, no wave can sway. I am a total person today.